This is the story of how a small Caribbean island, once dismissed as an economic basket case, launched the largest infrastructure transformation in its history. Jamaica has committed $1 trillion to rebuild itself from the ground up. And what makes this remarkable is not the number itself, but what it represents for a nation of fewer than 3 million people. Now, before anyone gets too excited, that trillion-dollar figure requires immediate clarification, because the currency matters enormously here. 1 trillion Jamaican dollars translates to roughly 6.3 billion US dollars spread across 5 years, which sounds far less dramatic until you understand the context. For Jamaica, this represents the single largest infrastructure investment the country has ever attempted, surpassing anything built since independence and dwarfing every previous government commitment combined. Finance Minister Nigel Clark stood before Jamaica's House of Representatives on March 12, 2024, and delivered the announcement that would define his country's economic ambitions for the next half-decade. The program, in his words, would positively impact the daily experience of Jamaicans through public investment designed to solve pain points. And the funding structure he outlined revealed just how seriously the government was taking this commitment. 500 billion Jamaican dollars would come directly from government coffers, according to the Fiscal policy paper, while the remaining $500 billion would flow through structured transactions with private sector partners. The 2024-2025 national budget stood at 1.34 trillion Jamaican dollars, with capital expenditure receiving 80 billion of that total. What caught everyone's attention was the allocation to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, which received 30.55 billion, nearly half the entire capital budget, positioning it as the engine driving Jamaica's infrastructure revolution. The timing of this announcement carried significance that extended far beyond the numbers themselves. Jamaica made this trillion-dollar commitment after enduring years of painful economic reform, after finally stabilizing finances that had once threatened the nation's sovereignty, and after demonstrating to international observers that fiscal discipline was not merely possible but sustainable. This wasn't desperation spending from a drowning economy, but calculated ambition from a country betting on its own future. If you want to understand what Jamaica is actually building, the roads tell the story better than anything else because they've been strangling progress for decades. Tourism buses crawling through potholed streets, farmers unable to move goods efficiently to market, commuters losing hours each day to traffic that infrastructure simply couldn't handle. The new plan attacks this bottleneck with 3 massive initiatives happening simultaneously. The Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project stands as the flagship, carrying a price tag of 384 million US dollars and stretching across the island's southern corridor in ways that will fundamentally reshape transportation patterns. China Harbor Engineering Company signed the contract back in June 2016, and by late 2024, the project had reached 96% completion, which represents genuinely remarkable progress for Caribbean infrastructure development. The highway divides into multiple components with different completion timelines, and understanding this structure reveals how massive the undertaking truly became. Part A runs 28 kilometers as a 4-lane rural arterial highway connecting May Pen in Clarendon to Williamsfield in Manchester, and that section opened to traffic on September 14, 2023. Part B includes a 17.4-kilometer 4-lane roadway from Harbour View to Yalas Bridge, which opened on February 6, 2024, while remaining sections totaling over 123 kilometers involve rehabilitation work stretching from Yalas Bridge to Port Antonio and from Morant Bay to Cedar Valley. The construction statistics paint a picture of genuine transformation rather than cosmetic improvement. 37 bridges and box culverts now exist where inadequate infrastructure once stood. Water and telecommunications systems now reach communities that previously lacked basic connectivity. Over 5,000 direct jobs materialized during construction, with another 3,000 indirect positions supporting the effort. Full completion, including the Port Antonio bypass, should arrive by March 2027. Over in Montego Bay, Jamaica's second city and primary tourism hub, another massive project reshapes how people move through western Jamaica. The Montego Bay Perimeter Road carries an estimated cost between 274 and 350 million US dollars, depending on which source you consult. And as of January 2025, construction had reached 55% completion. The main road stretches 14.9 kilometers with an additional 10.5-kilometer long hill bypass that will eventually connect to Montpelier and improve access to the south coast. One feature of this project deserves special attention because it represents engineering achievement on a scale Jamaica has never before attempted. The road will include the country's longest bridge ever built, spanning 180 meters at a height of 30 meters with 4 full lanes of traffic capacity. Prime Minister Andrew Holness toured the construction site in October 2024 and called it a Jamaica 60 Legacy initiative that would significantly improve transportation efficiency across the entire island. Budget allocations demonstrate sustained government commitment to seeing this through regardless of political pressures. The 2025-2026 budget allocated 14 billion Jamaican dollars specifically to the Montego Bay project, following 10.2 billion allocated the previous year. Mid-2026 remains the target completion date. If you're finding this breakdown of Jamaica's infrastructure transformation valuable, hit that subscribe button and help us reach 20,000 subscribers. We're building something here, covering stories that mainstream outlets overlook, and your subscription directly supports deeper investigations into Caribbean development, infrastructure megaprojects, and economic transformations happening across the region. Drop a comment below letting us know which Jamaica project interests you most, and we'll make sure to cover it in future videos. The third major road initiative operates under the name SPARK, which stands for Shared Prosperity through Accelerated Improvement to Our Road Network, and its ambition extends far beyond the flagship highway projects. The program carries a budget between 40 and 45 billion Jamaican dollars, with a target that sounds almost impossible. Modernize more than 2,000 roads across the entire island within a 2-year window. The funding breakdown reveals a philosophy about infrastructure investment that goes beyond merely connecting major cities. Part A allocates 20 billion for main roads through the National Works Agency. Part B dedicates another 20 billion to parochial and community roads. And this is where the structure gets interesting, because 10 billion gets divided equally among Jamaica's 63 constituencies at roughly 150 million each, while the remaining 10 billion distributes based on actual road length per constituency. By March 2025, the program had already impacted 126 roads throughout the island. Aviation infrastructure presents an equally compelling picture of Jamaica's transformation, though the investment approach differs significantly from the road projects. Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay handles over 95% of Jamaica's tourism-driven air traffic, making it arguably the most economically critical piece of infrastructure on the island. The airport operator unveiled a capital investment program of 118.1 million US dollars spanning 2026 through 2030. With spending concentrated in the early years. The 2026 allocation stands at 38.4 million, followed by 39.4 million in 2027, then tapering to 18.4 million in 2028, 11.6 million in 2029, and 10.3 million by 2030. Improvements include an expanded arrivals lounge, new gates at the East Concourse, upgraded customs and baggage processing, and biometric e-gates designed to accelerate passenger flow. What makes the Sangster situation particularly fascinating is the ownership structure and future planning. MBJ Airports Limited operates the facility with 75% ownership by Mexico's Pacific Airport Group and 25% by Canada's Vantage Group. And in September 2025, officials announced plans that caught the industry's attention. A completely new terminal estimated at $750 million entered the planning phase, targeting capacity for 5 million passengers annually by 2026. The current concession expires in 2034, prompting early renegotiation discussion to ensure continued investment momentum. Kingston's Norman Manley International Airport receives its own transformation through a $161 million modernization project. This facility serves a different market segment, primarily visitors returning to see friends and relatives rather than tourists, but it remains essential to Jamaica's overall connectivity strategy. The most exciting airport development doesn't actually exist yet, though planning has advanced considerably. Jamaica proposes building an entirely new international airport near Negril at an estimated cost of $460 million to be developed through a public-private partnership structure. The proposed location sits in Little London, Westmoreland Parish, approximately 20 minutes from Negril's famous 7-Mile beach. Transport Minister Darrell Vaz framed the project as something that would support tourism and drive economic activity across Westmoreland, Hanover, and sections of St. James. Currently, travelers must land in Montego Bay and endure up to 2 hours of road travel to reach Negril, so a purpose-built airport would transform access to Jamaica's Western tourism corridor. Traffic projections suggest the airport could eventually handle 1 million passengers annually within 10 years of opening. A comprehensive master plan has been completed, and the project continues moving through the public investment appraisal process, though officials estimate 5 to 7 years before the first plane touches down. The total airport capital program across all facilities reaches striking figures: $152 million, equivalent to 25 billion Jamaican dollars, allocated for 2025-2026 alone, with another $372 million budgeted through 2029. Tourism drives nearly 30% of Jamaica's GDP, which explains why private investors have poured billions into hotel construction at a pace that transforms entire coastlines. The numbers from 2024 demonstrate why. 2.9 million stopover visitors plus 1.25 million cruise passengers generated $4.33 billion in tourism earnings, exceeding pre-pandemic 2019 levels by 8.2%. Projections for 2025 point toward 4.3 to 4.5 million total visitors, generating $4.6 billion. These figures contextualize the hotel construction boom, reshaping Montego Bay's skyline, and the scale of individual projects defies what most people expect from Caribbean development. Moon Palace the Grand in Montego Bay broke ground on August 11, 2025, with Prime Minister Holness attending the ceremony for a $700 million investment that will create the tallest building in the Caribbean when completed. Standing 33 to 34 stories tall, the resort will deliver 1,200 rooms plus overwater bungalows, 13 restaurants and bars, Jamaica's largest spa, a water park, bowling facilities, championship golf access, and 3,000 projected local jobs. The Prime Minister's statement at the groundbreaking captured the government's enthusiasm. The Jamaican government welcomes this major investment in Montego Bay, which will boost our economy, strengthen our tourism sector, and create thousands of jobs. Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Montego Bay broke ground in April 2023 and will bring 1,000 rooms to the Rose Hall corridor, with possible expansion to 2,000 in subsequent phases. The resort includes a full-scale casino as part of Jamaica's push into gaming tourism, with opening expected by end of 2026. The Pinnacle represents a $450 million development featuring 4 towers reaching 28 stories each, located in Reading, Montego Bay, with first phase completion expected by 2027 and full delivery by 2028. UNICO Hotels enters the English-speaking Caribbean market, with UNICO 18 Degrees 77 Degrees Hotel Jamaica, a 435-room all-inclusive luxury property scheduled to open in March 2026. Princess Grand Jamaica launched in 2024 with 1,000 rooms expandable to 2,000, positioned between Montego Bay and Negril. The resort becomes Jamaica's first integrated casino resort when gaming facilities open in 2026. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett coined the term Tourism Innovation Township to describe the concentrated development around Barrett Town in the Rose Hall corridor. When construction finishes, this zone will house over 5,000 hotel rooms across Unico, Hard Rock, Moon Palace, and Iberostar properties, creating what Bartlett called the Caribbean's most concentrated collection of hotel rooms and a game-changer for tourism in the region. The pipeline extends beyond current construction. Total value of new hotel rooms expected over 5 to 10 years reaches an estimated $5 billion, translating to 15,000 to 20,000 new rooms, transforming Jamaica's hospitality landscape. Infrastructure investment extends far beyond transportation and tourism into healthcare, where Jamaica undertakes what officials describe as the most significant transformation in the nation's healthcare history. The Western Children and Adolescent Hospital rises on the compound of Cornwall Regional Hospital in Montego Bay, and when completed, it will stand as the first facility of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean. The 220-bed, 7 to 8-story hospital carries a $43 million cost, equivalent to 5.7 billion Jamaican dollars, funded jointly by the governments of Jamaica and the People's Republic of China. Construction began in 2017, and the hospital will offer 12 specialties including pediatric cardiology and psychiatry. Structural work on the main building has finished, with workers now installing internal components including partitions, ward spaces, windows, and doors. The facility incorporates a 60-room residence for health professionals and 4 operating theaters, with 800 million Jamaican dollars allocated for 2025-2026 to continue the work. Cornwall Regional Hospital itself undergoes a 23.5 billion Jamaican dollar rehabilitation, having entered its third and final phase in October 2023. The administrative block reopened in April 2025, marking the first milestone, with 11 new operating theaters planned. Completion targets have shifted to the first quarter of 2026. The hospital's troubles trace back to 2009, when extensive air quality issues surfaced, forcing relocations and workarounds that compromised care for over a decade. The rehabilitation aims to finally resolve these long-standing problems and restore full functionality to Western, Jamaica's primary medical facility. Spanish Town Hospital receives a 5.5 billion Jamaican dollar redevelopment, adding 129 new beds and 3 operating theaters. June 2025 brought an announcement from Health Minister Christopher Tufton regarding plans for a new Kingston Public Hospital, Jamaica's oldest and busiest public medical facility. Land has been identified and planning commenced. The minister's reasoning was characteristically blunt. We need to avoid a second Cornwall Regional Hospital. System-wide, Jamaica expects to add more than 450 new hospital beds in the near term, supported by 27 new operating theaters over 2 years, representing a 37% increase over the current 73 theaters. Health centers in Greater Portmore receive $660 million, Old Harbor gets $930 million, and St. Jago Park receives 704 million Jamaican dollars for upgrades. Water infrastructure receives attention through the Rio Cabo water treatment plant, a 77 to 78 million US dollar facility costing 12 billion Jamaican dollars that will produce 15 million imperial gallons of treated water daily when operational. The March 14, 2025 groundbreaking launched a public-private partnership with Vinci Construction and Capital Infrastructure Group under a 25-year water purchase agreement. The plant will serve the Kingston metropolitan area, Portmore, and Spanish Town, benefiting over 600,000 Jamaicans who currently struggle with inadequate water supply. Prime Minister Holness called it a win-win for everyone, noting that few Caribbean countries have successfully implemented PPPs in the water sector. Rural water access expands simultaneously, with 13 completed projects already benefiting 13,500 citizens, and expansion planned to reach 45,000 more in 2025-2026. Housing construction addresses a shortage that government officials acknowledge requires approximately 150,000 solutions over the next 5 to 10 years. The National Housing Trust targets 43,000 housing starts, with major developments already breaking ground. Longville Meadows in Clarendon delivers 2064 houses through a 25 billion Jamaican dollar partnership, with groundbreaking completed in June 2025. Mount Nelson in Manchester provides 1758 housing solutions across 491 acres, developed with China's Henan 5th Construction Group, with phased delivery from July 2026 through July 2028. Urban recreation receives investment through the Portmore Resilience Park, a 4.4 billion Jamaican dollar, 21.5-acre facility scheduled for September 2025 completion. Features include a 700-meter jogging track, tennis and pickleball courts, an indoor sports center, outdoor gym, concert area, and Jamaica's first climate change tower for air quality monitoring. The name Resilience carries deliberate significance because Portmore is expected to become Jamaica's newest parish, and Prime Minister Holness explained the philosophy behind the branding. Resilience means the ability to withstand shocks and hardships, to absorb and recover even better than before. Understanding Jamaica's infrastructure transformation requires examining the China factor, because China Harbor Engineering Company has operated on the island since 2009 and completed nearly 20 major infrastructure projects during that time. The portfolio spans critical national assets. The Palisadoes Shoreline Protection Project at 65.5 million US dollars, the Jamaica Development Infrastructure Program at 400 million US dollars, the North-South Highway, the Southern Coastal Highway, the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, the Rio Grande Bridge in Portland, the Kingston Near Port Logistics Park, and multiple housing developments. CHEC operates as a subsidiary of China Communications Construction Company, one of the world's largest infrastructure conglomerates. November 2019 brought Prime Minister Holness to China, where Jamaica signed a cooperation plan under Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. Employment statistics demonstrate tangible local impact. The Montego Bay Perimeter Road alone created over 1,000 local jobs, while the Southern Coastal Highway generated more than 5,000 direct jobs and 3,000 indirect positions. CHEC established a material testing laboratory partnering with the University of the West Indies that achieved ISO 17025 certification in April 2025, now operating as one of the largest engineering facilities in the Caribbean. Legitimate questions surround this partnership that deserve acknowledgement. CHEC faced World Bank debarment for bribery in Bangladesh, raising concerns about corporate governance that extend beyond Jamaica. Questions persist regarding belt and road financing implications and long-term influence over national infrastructure decisions. The Jamaican government maintains that partnerships create jobs, transfer technology, and deliver infrastructure the nation desperately needs. Critics advocate for greater scrutiny of contract terms and downstream implications. What remains undeniable is that Chinese construction expertise and financing have become integral to Jamaica's infrastructure ambitions, with the relationship likely deepening as additional projects advance. Jamaica's confidence in executing this trillion-dollar plan stems from an economic transformation that international observers once considered impossible. The debt-to-GDP ratio exceeded 140% in 2013, drowning the country in obligations that consumed every available resource and left nothing for investment. Today that ratio stands at 68.7%, the lowest since the 1970s, with targets set for 60% by 2027 or 2028. This transformation emerged through what Prime Minister Holness describes as rock-solid policy reforms, delivering 10 consecutive budgets with no net new taxes and 8 consecutive years without any new taxes whatsoever. Economic indicators tell the story across every measurement. Unemployment hit a record low of 3.5%, the lowest in Jamaica's recorded history. Inflation dropped from 10.3% in November 2022 to 4.3% by late 2024. Net international reserves reached a record $5.6 billion US. Business confidence climbed to its highest level since 2019. Before Hurricane Beryl struck in 2024, Jamaica had recorded 12 consecutive quarters of post-COVID economic growth. Temporary setbacks from Beryl and Tropical Storm Raphael prompted economists to project recovery in the first quarter of 2025. Prime Minister Holness made a striking claim during a March 2025 budget speech. No other nation in the world has matched the scale of Jamaica's economic turnaround in just under a decade, and the country once dismissed as a basket case is now celebrated as a global model of resilience and fiscal reform. Debt servicing costs dropped from 33% of expenditure in 2014 to 2015 to 18%, freeing billions for capital investment. The income tax threshold rose from $592,800 Jamaican dollars in 2016 to $1.8 million in 2025, with plans targeting $2 million over the next 2 budgets. Jamaica builds this infrastructure from stability rather than desperation, wagering that investment now accelerates growth for decades to come. Challenges and vulnerabilities remain that no honest assessment can ignore, starting with the energy sector, where Jamaica ranks among the most expensive places on Earth for electricity. Rates run approximately 36 US cents per kilowatt-hour in 2024, placing the country in the global top 10 for electricity costs. The national grid loses 27.3% of electricity to theft and technical inefficiency, the highest loss rate anywhere in the Caribbean. A 2024 survey revealed that 65% of Jamaican businesses cite energy costs as their primary barrier to growth. The government has responded with significant announcements. Jamaica Public Service Company's all-island electricity license expires July 8, 2027, and in July 2025, the government declared it would not renew under current terms. Renewable energy targets aim for 30 to 33% of electricity from renewables by 2030 and 50% by 2037. Investment in solar energy proceeds. 1,500 panels at the University Hospital. Plans for 63-68 rooftop panels across hospitals and government buildings. Transforming the energy sector requires years and billions more, with success far from guaranteed. Hurricane vulnerability presents existential risk that infrastructure cannot eliminate. Hurricane Melissa in 2025 caused an estimated $8.8 billion in damages, exceeding the entire 5-year infrastructure budget in a single weather event. Jamaica secured a $6.7 billion international support package involving the IMF, World Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, and other institutions. Climate change intensifies storms while making predictions increasingly unreliable. Every major infrastructure investment now incorporates climate resilience planning, though the fundamental risk persists regardless of engineering improvements. Project delays have already materialized in predictable fashion. Cornwall Regional Hospital's completion date slipped from 2026 to 2027, 2028, and various road projects have experienced timeline adjustments. Large infrastructure programs rarely proceed exactly as planned, and Jamaica's prove no exception. Questions arise about whether $6.3 billion over 5 years truly meets the need. Housing alone requires an estimated 150,000 units. Roads, hospitals, airports, and water systems all compete for limited capital. The government argues this represents maximum responsible investment while maintaining fiscal discipline, though critics suggest more aggressive spending is essential for genuine transformation. The timeline ahead determines whether Jamaica's infrastructure gamble delivers promised returns. Mid-2026 should bring completion of the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, including Jamaica's longest-ever bridge. The UNICO Hotel opens its doors. The Portmore Resilience Park welcomes visitors to what becomes Jamaica's newest parish. End of 2026 targets Hard Rock Hotel and casino operations, and Princess Grand Jamaica's debut as the island's first integrated casino resort. March 2027 marks expected full completion of the Southern Coastal Highway, including the Port Antonio Bypass. By 2028, the Pinnacle's 4 28-story towers reshape Montego Bay's skyline permanently. Throughout this period, Spark paves roads across all 63 constituencies. Hospitals receive equipment and operating theaters. Housing developments deliver thousands of units, and airports process millions of additional passengers annually. Moon Palace, rising to 33 stories, will stand as physical evidence that Jamaica has arrived as a major Caribbean destination. The Western Children and Adolescent Hospital will treat young patients using techniques previously unavailable anywhere in the English-speaking Caribbean. New highways will slash travel times that frustrated tourists and residents for generations. Jamaica has wagered its economic future on infrastructure as the engine of sustained growth. Better roads reduce transportation costs and accelerate commerce. Better airports bring more tourists carrying more dollars. Better hotels create jobs and generate tax revenue. Better hospitals produce healthier and more productive workers. Whether theory becomes reality depends on execution quality, global economic conditions, hurricane patterns, and sustained political commitment across administrations. The trillion-dollar figure captured headlines in March 2024, and skeptics had every reason to doubt given Jamaica's troubled economic history. A small island nation making promises that would challenge countries many times its size seemed ambitious beyond reason. Jamaica approaches this challenge from transformed circumstances compared to a decade ago. Debt has been cut nearly in half. Unemployment sits at historic lows. International reserves have reached record highs. Fiscal discipline, once considered impossible, has become routine practice. The $6.3 billion planned over 5 years represents not reckless optimism, but calculated ambition. The largest infrastructure investment in national history, financed through government funds, private partnerships, and international cooperation working in coordination. From the Southern Coastal Highway to Moon Palace, from the Western Children's Hospital to the proposed Negril Airport, Jamaica attempts to build its way toward a more prosperous future. The honest answer to whether this works is that nobody knows with certainty. Infrastructure alone does not guarantee prosperity, though infrastructure decay guarantees stagnation. Jamaica has decided to bet on itself, and the next several years reveal whether that bet pays off. A country once dismissed as a basket case now builds highways, airports, hospitals, and hotels at a pace unseen in its history. Whether you call it $1 trillion or $6.3 billion, the scale of ambition remains undeniable. And for a small Caribbean island of fewer than 3 million people, that ambition might be exactly what's needed to shock the world.